So the plan is that August 1st we could see some hockey back, and that's in about 3.5 weeks. So what's the schedule going to look like? Well, it looks like it's going to be some busy days. Now this is going to be at the start. Now, during the time where we're going to have 24 teams playing, the plan is to have 3 games played in the same building in Toronto and in Edmonton. Now, Toronto gets off to the early start, but locally, if you're in Toronto or Edmonton, the games will be at noon, 4 o'clock, and 8 o'clock. So, there you go. But for me, out on the West Coast, that means games will start at 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 5 p.m. out of Toronto, and Edmonton to be 11 a.m., 3 p.m., and 7 p.m. So, technically, my day would start at 9 a.m. in the morning and run till about 10 o'clock at night, at least. Because remember, the play-ins have playoff style overtime, meaning you could have a triple overtime game with this one that starts at noon and it bumps everything else back. And there is no discussion about changing the whole idea of this and how it's going to work. Now, what's interesting is this is likely for the play-in round, and then round 1 they can probably change it. But with the best of 5 play-in and the round robin, it's easy to forget the round robin for the top seeds trying to decide who's going to be number 1 in each conference. That's 24 teams altogether, 12 of them playing every day. So teams would play every other day. And it should be done in 9 or 10 days. So the idea really is simple. You're going to have 24 teams playing, and you're going to have 8 teams eliminated within a week and a half. And so that's a week and a half of hockey for 8 teams over a period of likely 9 months. So here's to fingers crossed and hoping they can get this done as safely as possible, because then you get down to 16. So again, it's likely, and we'll see a schedule, I would think, over the next few days. The CBA and the return to play are now in the hands of the union, where the NHLPA, the heads of the PA, have said, yep, we sign off on this. Now it's gone to the union so they can ratify it. Should the union come back with a positive result, which is just 50% plus 1 vote, that would mean that we get this set up likely August 1st, and of course we would be 5 days away from the start of training camp right now. Yeah, it's pretty close, because they know they have to get this done and figure out a way to make it safe. And then I would think that after the play-in, and Bob McKenzie says, and it would make sense, I've said this as well, that the round robin games should go last, not first. So the idea being that the round robin games are the ones that you have a regular overtime and a regular shootout should the game be tied after the overtime. And so that would mean that when that game starts, we know when it's going to end in all likelihood. Although you can get really long shootouts as well. Drove me nuts. And people who watch my reviews remember that California games would often go to that overtime and then that shootout would keep going. I'd be like, oh my God, I just want to get the review done and go to bed. So now for people watching this who may not know, the plan is simple. There will be a board made up for every game. So there's 6 games during the day. That means I will be doing 6 different review videos. I'll take extensive notes on every game as much as humanly possible. The one thing that Yvonne and I have talked about is that, yes, it does mean a long day for me every day during most of the play-in round. And I say most of because some of these are going to end in 3 games. Some of them are going to end in 4. They're not all going to go 5. But it's actually going to be easier for me than during the regular season, because during the regular season, there might be 6 or 7 games on at a time, and I'm trying to follow everything that's going on. So this setup is going to mean for long days, but they shouldn't be that tough. And like I said, you'll get 6 reviews. You'll get the preview as well for the next day's games. But I may do the preview during the day prior, as in, getting that board made up for the preview, and just in between periods during one of these games going, okay, I'll do the preview now. And we'll have the preview ready for that. And the preview will be for all 6 games that are coming up the following day. I'm not doing individual previews because that would get ridiculous, but I'll do a review for every game. And that was the plan before we reached the playoffs anyways. The plan this year for the playoffs was I was going to have a board for every review, have my multiple easels set up. I do have 3 easels. I have one I took apart in March when the whole thing fell. It was the art easel. It was the giant easel that I was using most often in my videos, which I took it apart in March when the season was put on pause. And it was saddening to me. I was like, I don't know when I'm going to put this back together. Well, now I know it should be ready to go August 1st. If I end up needing it. Because the thing is, now I have two of them, but there shouldn't be more than 2 games on at a time. But with overtime being as it is, we just don't know. So it looks like, and a lot of the comments that are coming out now are a lot of players saying, yeah, well, we're coming back. So a lot of the players publicly are saying, yeah, we're coming back. So the idea that 75% might say no appears to be blown out of the water right now. Doesn't mean there aren't certain teams where players are concerned, or certain groups of players that are very concerned, but it looks like everybody's ready to come back. And then what I'm wondering is, when you get to round one, the official round one of the playoffs, where you have 16 teams left, do we go to a doubleheader where it'll be 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock with every game, and then you get into a more, I would think, a system that works better. And as teams are eliminated, I would think you eliminate that early game. The ratings are not going to be good for those early games in North America, but for people in Europe, Lars is smiling right now because he's knowing, hey, that's going to be a minimum of 2, maybe 3, depending on whether or not it's a weekend. 3 games that are on at a relatively decent time for people in Sweden or for people in other parts of Europe. So if you're a European NHL fan, this schedule is going to work very well for you. If you have a job in North America, odds are you're going to miss some games. But again, this is during the play-in round. I would think when we get to round 1, the games go to 4 and 8 o'clock locally in each location. And then, of course, the following round, we get down to 1 game in each hub. And then it gets a lot easier to keep things safe and secure. Once we get past the round of 16, I think once we're down to 8 teams left, I think a lot of that stress will come off. The stress is going to be here and here. And it's going to be trying to get this played as well and as fairly as possible and as safely as possible. And then again, once we get down to 8 teams left, it should be just 1 game in each hub each day. So it should be a lot safer. It should be a lot easier. And then we can all sort of just breathe a little easier. And again, for people who say, oh, they should just play next year's regular season on time, I don't know how you make any of this work with 31 teams. I don't. Because again, we don't know how things are going to be in October. And, fingers crossed things are better. But if they're not, that's fine because we'll be in the Stanley Cup Finals in October. And there should just be 2 teams left, likely in Edmonton. It sounds like the conference finals and finals are likely to be in Edmonton rather than in Toronto. But that'll probably get announced when they announce the ratification of the CBA in a few days. And then once we reach the 13th, we know for sure who is and who isn't going to play. And again, the conversation about whether or not Domi and Kakko are going to be able to play is out there. And we don't really have an answer yet. We know that the Rangers want Kakko to play. We know Montreal very, very likely wants. We haven't heard publicly that I can tell from Montreal whether or not they want Domi to play. But we've got to think they want to play and that the players themselves are willing to play. But there may very well be an NHL doctor that goes, no, we can't do it for insurance reasons or just, safety reasons. I can't sign off on this. So things are going to be interesting and things are going to be busy come August 1st. So I'm just letting you guys know, plan your days accordingly, starting August 1st. And I would think that which series goes on when, they'll probably change it around. Because, say, for instance, Toronto and Columbus, you might have that at 9 a.m. in one instance, you might have it at 5 p.m. in another, at 1 p.m. in another. Or they may schedule it where the Toronto games are all on at 5 p.m. because Rogers says, hey, we get really good ratings with the Columbus Blue Jackets and Toronto Maple Leafs because it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And, of course, Montreal and Pittsburgh. Do you have Montreal and Pittsburgh on the other day? So again, you're doing that? Or, yeah, again, round-robin games are likely last, so Toronto games are probably going to be on at 1 p.m. So if all the Toronto games are on at 1 p.m., to fans of the Toronto Maple Leafs who work a 9-to-5 job, how would that feel not being able to see the Toronto Maple Leafs play at least a couple of those play-in games? They're not technically playoffs. They're not being called playoffs because they're technically not. I know we're viewing it that way and it's playoff rules. But how would it feel with a playoff-style atmosphere, not being able to see the team that you cheer for because of when the games start in the hub city. I know there's been matinee games when I had old jobs that I worked on weekends. It was frustrating not to be able to watch a team I cheered for in a playoff game. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happen upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. Apologies about Shadow. I don't know what it is when the videos start. Anyways, thanks again. I'll talk to you again soon.